So that sense of discovery is so important, obviously, to good art, right? And like something that is that kind of catches your interest, right? That sense of discovery. So yeah, and you're getting at something that's really interesting to me because I guess the question that I would ask is, since you have to have that sense of discovery with art, and if sort of your idea of that it kind of keeps circling back around to something older that you reference, how do we feel like it's new when it's not? Is it because people just forgot it was there? Like in 2000 years, if someone wrote the exact same chord progression and like starting point as Moonlight Sonata, but Moonlight Sonata had been forgotten by society, would we have that sense of discovery again, and would it feel new? Is that kind of what you feel like happens, or is there actually like newness that is being dreamt up every day in current times, or is it just always something that someone didn't realize was already there? Does that make sense?
Yes and no. I think what I'm going to say is newness is, of course, always there, right? I think it's impossible for anyone to sit down and write the Moonlight Sonata exactly as it was written. And I think it's partly because whoever's going to try to write a new Moonlight Sonata is not Beethoven, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are all...
the context itself is
exactly
not going to allow that to happen.
Exactly. And we are all products of our influences, products of our culture. And even if I were to sit at a piano and start off a piece with that C sharp minor arpeggio, like that's very distinctive of a Moonlight Sonata, I think it would lead me somewhere else, right? Mm-hmm. And that's is partly kind of, I think, the fact that there's so many songs and so many pieces that use the same exact chord progression but sound completely different, right? Mm-hmm. Because different people wrote it. We recognize the similarity because, again, like if you're a 19th century Italian composer, then you're probably going to sound like a 19th century Italian composer. Just like right now, if you're a 21st century rapper, you're going to sound like a 21st century rapper because there's been a common language that everyone is using to kind of define what that genre is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
So individuality creates newness.
Right. I'm glad you specified it, because I think it can be kind of sort of discouraging for people trying to find something new or innovative in music without that caveat, right? Of course, saying that things kind of go through, it's more cyclical or circular, you could say, I guess, versus progressive. History keeps going back and repeating itself, finding new iterations of what it already has done. But with that caveat that the context, the times, the circumstances change, I will never write a harpsichord piece like that again, because I don't think, a lot of things contribute to that. In hindsight, I drove like 6 hours from Chicago in one go, kind of late at night. And then I was like in a practice room. I had like 24 hours, 48 hours, I can't remember, a day or two, access to an instrument. I wanted to chill out and like have something more like chill after like driving a lot. All those things actually make something, special in that moment, right? Mm-hmm. And like the act of composing too, as well as the act of performing, it's really similar. Every performance is special too.
Exactly.
And if you think of composition as a performance for just that you do by yourself, basically, it is just as special and unique. So that's cool that this, like, I'm glad that you like explained that really clearly, so that there's this sort of, so that it's clear that yes, things repeat itself, but there is still always discovery and innovation and newness that can always be uncovered. And I like to have that approach too. I'm not sure if it's true, but I think it's the most positive, like exciting way for me to, as a creator, to be like, oh yeah, no, there's stuff still out there, you know?
I mean, there's stuff, I mean, the discovery stuff, look, I'm not really, I composed a little bit, but I wouldn't really call myself a composer. That was a very generous introduction. But my favorite parts of when I'm figuring something out is that I figured something out. Like there's a solution that I've sort of discovered. A lot of times that solution, you go, oh, someone kind of did that.
Yeah.
But the fact that you discovered it through the process, that the material that you came up with led to this solution, is the joy of it. It's not necessarily the originality of that solution. It's that that solution was perfect for that time, for the problem that I was working through in the composition. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's important that you did it.
Exactly. That you discovered something. That's what matters. That's where I think where the excitement comes from. Because I think if you go back to Beethoven, you can actually trace a lot of his techniques to, oh, this and this and this. Haydn, for example, did a lot of things that Beethoven did. The whole idea of bringing back an element of the third movement in a fourth movement, like Beethoven famously did in the Fifth Symphony, Haydn did in like Symphony 46 or something, right? That idea by itself is not original, but I think we remember the Beethoven because the way Beethoven solved the problem, how that solution worked in the Fifth Symphony was, it had a very good dramatic compositional effect. So the solution itself wasn't original, but the context was really original, if that makes sense. So that's why I think we remember the Beethoven more than we remember that Haydn did it first.
Right.